yeah! Welcome to Japanatron. My name's Dave Pavlina. Japanatron is a podcast about life in Japan and Japanese culture. What's today's topic? Today we're going to talk about the themes of Japan. This is like my 10 years of life in Japan all summarized in one podcast. It's going to be a cool episode. These themes are like my mantras. My They summarize the Japanese culture very, very conveniently for me. Whenever I'm confused, I don't know what the fuck is going on, one of these themes usually covers it, usually explains the Japanese culture to me, and helps me figure out, oh, that's what's going on here. Okay. These themes are like the blood. They're the circulatory system of the culture. You like that? They flow through the many faucets of life and the culture here. You know, I see them in a very wide range of situations. So they're the circulatory system of the culture. Yeah. One little note. I kind of took like a top-down approach with this, okay? So, like, in particular, the first theme I'm going to talk about sort of feeds into the second and so on. You know, kind of like a stream. You know, it starts up in the mountains, and then it goes down into many, you know, tributaries or whatever, and deltas and all that stuff. So, okay, let's get into this. Theme number one. Da-da-da-dong. I'm trying to build up the drama there, but I don't have the music. Japan is an island, both figuratively and literally. Oh yeah, I love this one. Japan is an island. Woo! Japan likes to do its own thing. And you see this theme a lot. There's the global standard, and then there's Japan. It's kind of like this us and them mentality, almost. And I don't want to get too much into this because this could be a whole other topic. And it's kind of a pessimistic view, but there's the Japanese, and then there's foreigners. Immigrants aren't really considered Japanese. They can never really be considered Japanese, I don't think, here. It's a homogeneous culture. Unlike America, you know, you can immigrate to America, and you can become American. You walking down the street of any large city, especially like New York or LA, and nobody knows. I mean, what is American? You know, nobody really knows. America is an immigrant nation. Japan is not. So, unfortunately, there's this kind of us and them mentality. And, you know, Japan was fairly isolationist throughout its history. And, you know, the story goes that Commodore Perry from the U.S. showed up with his black ships and literally forced the trading doors open, saying, like, we're going to start doing some business with Japan, whether you like it or not, or we're going to start, you know, cannons blazing away. Now, Japan did have some limited trading. I think it was with Portugal and the Netherlands, if I got my history right. But compared to other countries, Japan was quite isolationist for quite a long time. And so I really like, you know, the white flag with the red dot as, you know, Japan's flag. It's very appropriate. It kind of highlights that island type of thing, the figurative and literal island of Japan. And additionally, you know, Japan has a fairly closed-door immigration policy. Japan has never had anything like, you know, what the U.S. did during the Industrial Revolution, during the Civil War. Hey, the doors are open. Come on in, immigrants. We got plenty of land. We got to start working here. We got an economy to build. Japan's never really done that, and I still hear that Japan's immigration policy is fairly closed door. For the most part, most of the general working visas, with some exceptions, require a 4-year college degree. Okay. I have a few examples of this to kind of paint this sort of Japan as an island theme here. And this is kind of a bad example, but let's start with it anyway, because I'm feeling like that. I work in IT, and our head office is based in the UK, and we tried to deploy this Fuji Xerox printer driver, okay, for all of our copiers. Okay, and so the UK office gave me the global driver, right? So I tried the global driver, and it didn't work with our copiers. And so I contacted Fuji Xerox support and asked them, what's up with this? Why doesn't the global driver work? And they checked on it, and they said that the global driver, get this, works on every Fuji Xerox copier in the world, except for those sold in Japan. And when this happened to me, I was just like, oh my god, this totally is Japan's island mentality. So literally, I had to download the Japanese driver for our copiers, and I had to use that. And it's funny because people visit from other offices, and they're like, "Why aren't you using the global driver?" And I'm like, "It doesn't work here, dude. It's like Twilight Zone, man. Up is down, down is up, man. This is Japan. It's all different here. It's wacky." Okay, here's another good example. Is the world wants to save blue whales, and dolphins and all that, and Japan wants to kill them. So pretty much the rest of the world, and when I say rest of the world, I guess, I'm kind of being biased towards, the first world, or maybe the Western, industrialized world, so I apologize for that. But for the most part, the world wants to save the blue whale and the dolphins and all that, and Japan wants to kill them. We're doing quote-unquote research, and then we're going to eat them. And I love this. There's this one episode of Family Guy, and they said it really well. They said it best. Japan, they kill things we like. I love that. The last thing I want to say about this theme, is Japan as an island, is ironically, the USA actually does quite a bit of this too. And the most vivid example, the most obvious example, is how the US uses feet, pounds, miles, all that shit, while the rest of the world is using the metric system. And hey, Japan is using the metric system, so I'll give them that, So the US does a little bit of this island, we're going to do our own thing too. So as an American, I feel right at home here. Japan's an island. Let's move on. Number 2, Japan is a collectivist culture. Oh yeah. And this kind of comes from the island thing, I guess. There's Japanese and there's foreigner. And in the Japanese circle, it's very collectivist. You're a member of the Japanese culture, you're a member of the Japanese people, and we got these values and this deal, okay? Now, the USA values personal freedom, individual expression. It's an immigrant nation. It's very diverse. Lots of different people from lots of different countries formed the USA. Japan, on the other hand, values collective harmony. Let's all get along. We're all Japanese. We're all on the same team. Let's all get along. And we value collective harmony. Okay, the bees in the hive all have to buzz in harmony. Now, it's the type of culture you would almost expect from that Japan as an island thing, this isolationist island. Hey, we got China trying to attack us, in the early history and all that. We got to all stick together. This is the Japanese people. And it's almost like, the collectivism and the patriotism would feed each other, and make it so that Japan would survive through its early history. So maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. In the USA, they say, we say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You speak up, you scream, you yell, you make a ruckus, you're going to get noticed and you'll get the oil. Japan, on the other hand, their expression is the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. Bam, bam, bam. You do not want to stand out in a collectivist culture. It's not cool. So that's like pretty much polar opposites there. And a silly example of this, Japan loves uniforms, don't they? They love their uniforms. They got their school uniforms, they got their police, they got their flight attendant, they got their office worker, they got their construction worker. All got uniforms. I mean, every country's got uniforms, but Japan loves their uniforms, and they love uniformity. You love that? Uniforms and uniformity. Collectivist. And another good example, elementary school kids, okay? They have the same uniform, but not only that, they also have that backpack called the landoseru. It's like this kind of old school, it looks like something from Switzerland in the 40s or something like that. It's kind of like leather backpack, I guess. They're pretty expensive. And I always wondered what happens if you're an elementary school kid and you don't use the randoseru. You will probably be fucked. You'll be made fun of. to no end until you get yourself a standard Japanese randoseru backpack. Okay, you better use it. High school sports teams, they all have the same haircut, and this kind of creeps me out because it looks a little cult-like. I see a big group of high school girls, and they're all on the same volleyball team, I guess, and they all have the exact same haircut. It's a little militaristic, and it's a little creepy at times. It looks kind of cult-like. Now, as an American, I grew up in a fairly individualist culture. It's a bit overwhelming for me at times. I see this whole collectivist type thing. It looks a little cult-like, all wearing the same clothes with the same haircut, like, rah, join us. A little bit communist, little zombie-like. They're going to bite me and I'm going to become one of them. I wish. And historically, Japan considers citizenship, I believe, linked to the bloodline. The U.S. does not. So, if you're Japanese, if you have Japanese blood, you are a Japanese citizen. So they kind of do it by blood. So that's kind of that collectivist thing working there again. I mean, I see the advantage of this. You get the whole collective, you get the whole hive, working towards these common goals, And it's almost, I hate to say it, it's almost like the Borg from Star Trek. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. But and I hate to bring up this kind of cynical opinion I have, but I think people really are instinctively driven, sort of by greed and self-interest. And I kind of believe in this sort of sinister view of the world where, the powers that be and the rich and the upper class try to convince the general population that they're working towards some kind of enlightened goal. While the upper classes, the government, politicians, and all that are just counting their money. I admit that's a bit sinister, but I think it really gets amplified when you turn that into a collectivist culture. It gets a little creepy. So I'm going to say that. I mean, maybe I'm going overboard. I mean, at the end of the day, modern Japan is on paper Modern Japan is on paper still a capitalist democracy, on the surface anyhow. But there's still kind of this Borg from Star Trek thing that sometimes is a bit overwhelming to me. But hey, it's there. And a lot of Japanese things that you may experience here, especially if you live here for any time, it can be explained. Oh, it's a collectivist culture. And especially if you did not come from a collectivist culture yourself, you might experience like, whoa, you're out of your element there. Let's move on. The next one, and this definitely comes from the collectivist culture. Number 3, Japan has a lot of rules and protocol. They love their rules. And I'm always saying this to myself. Japan's got its rules. Japan loves the rules. They love the rules. And God bless them. Sometimes I really love it. Sometimes I don't. And, along with this collectivist culture, they got these rules and they got the protocol. You are Japanese, you are Borg, okay? You are part of this collective, Hey, when you think about it, the Borg probably had a lot of rules too. You got that big ship, you got this collective. You can't have people getting out of control. You gotta have a lot of rules. You gotta be back in your compound or whatever that thing was, the alcove that the Borg had. You gotta be back, before the curfew or whatever. So, just like the Borg had a lot of rules, the Japanese have a lot of rules. And I think historically this probably comes from the fact that Japan had the strict class hierarchy. And you see a lot of examples about, a lot of examples of this in Japanese culture and the language especially. You got your keigo. You have your formal Japanese. And with keigo, there's the ue no hito, there's the upper person, and there's the shita no hito, the lower person. You got the kohai, and you got the senpai, okay? You got the senior, and you got the junior, okay? You got all that. And, you got these different levels of speech to use in the Japanese language, okay? So there's a lot of this hierarchy embedded in the culture, and it shows itself in the language. So that's sort of, I think that's where it came from. You had all these upper classes and lower classes, the farmer class, the agrarian classes, all that, and because of that, you got to have a lot of rules. You got to keep these people under control. It's collectivist, but we got different levels of people here. Everyone's equal, but some are more equal than others, right? So you're Japanese. You're a member of this collective, okay? So you naturally understand the many rules of membership. You're already a member. You were born into this. So you understand the rules. All right, you get it. And I mean, this is what culture is, right? Every country, every culture has this. But I just think that Japanese culture has slightly higher expectations than other cultures because they're part of this very homogenous collective. Okay? There's Japanese and there's not Japanese. In America, I mean, what is American? I mean, it's an immigrant country, and you have so many cultures all sort of blended historically together. And America does have its own identity. I used to think it didn't. It does have its own culture, its own identity. But I think just because we're based on so much of all that immigrant history there, I think there's just sort of like, there's not really much of a collective at all. Japan does have a very strong collective identity. And like I said, I'm always telling myself, Japan loves the rules. And especially when people ask me, even Japanese people ask me, like, what is going on here? Why is this taking so long? Why is there so much bureaucracy? Japan loves its rules, man. Japan loves the rules, okay? So, definitely theme number 3 there. Number 4, moving on. Communication in Japan is often indirect, inferred, or unsaid. Oh, yeah. And when you study Japanese language, you will very soon realize this. And I love this example, is that when you're explaining something or giving a reason for something, or you want to turn something down, you want to say no, you don't usually explicitly say no. It's too direct in the Japanese language. You say, それはちょっと, ten. And the ten is that sort of pause. So that literally translates to, that's a little bit. And then the Japanese person's, you're a member of that collective, you know exactly what that means, okay? You don't have to be told explicitly, no, I don't want to go out with you, man. The conditions are just kind of like a little bit unfavorable right now, okay? So that's going to come up, okay, time and time again. They just don't say no directly. And, they say that's a little bit, the conditions are not favorable. Okay, another good example is you have to do something, or I have to do something, is literally said, literally translates in Japanese to something like, if I don't do this, then the result would be unfavorable. So it's kind of reversed there. And I think it kind of highlights again that sort of indirect, unsaid, very, inferred way of communication in Japanese. And another good example is sometimes when I'm talking, especially to a Japanese guy, sometimes I don't even get the ... or the, that's a little bit, I don't even get that. I just get this like sucking sound, like, and you will hear this. You're talking to like a Japanese sales guy, and you're like, with my mobile phone, instead of getting the phone for a 2-year contract, can I get like just the SIM card, pay as you go? That's what you're gonna get, man. And that's what that means. That means no. That means fuck no, man. I wish they just said it sometimes, but hey, I know what it is. I've lived here long enough. I know what that means. Okay, so that's pretty much, when you hear that sucking sound, it means wow, wow, wow. Okay, and, this could be, and it probably is, a byproduct of the collectivist culture. I mean, we're all Japanese, we're all so connected, we don't really have to explicitly state everything to you. In the U.S., we're not all white, we're not all black, we're not all, whatever. We come from different backgrounds, maybe, historically, especially. We immigrated at different times, whatever. We all have a different deal going on. We grew up in different places. So we're not really all members of the same team here, exactly. And so maybe we do have to be a bit more direct, a little bit more individualist with it. But in Japan, we're all bees in the same hive here, man, and so we don't really have to say explicitly "fuck you." Okay, they do say that though, but hey, I'm just saying, generally speaking, very indirect. And I gotta admit, I sometimes have a lot of trouble nailing this when talking to someone. I still can't get the pause right. That's a little bit... And this happens a lot on the phone. In my job, sometimes I'll get, IT salespeople calling me and they want to talk to me about some kind of special offer, some kind of campaign going on right now. I really don't want to talk about it. And I'm just sort of like, Choto! Choto! And I often just end up saying, Choto. That's a little bit, and then I just hang up the phone, and I just assume they got it. So, I've actually talked to Japanese people about this, and they say, yeah, man, with salespeople, you're definitely the upper person. The salesperson is definitely the person below you. So you can be as rude as you want, pretty much. Just go for it, man. Just hang up on them. Most Japanese probably don't do that, but there's a subset that do. So I feel comforted by that. Thank you, Japan. Last theme. What are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think this is number 5. Last theme here. The company is your family. Okay, and this is kind of a historic mentality, I'll admit. And recently it has been changing a lot. I've seen a lot of kind of alternative lifestyles building. People not following that 9-to-5 lifetime employment system that Japan is known for historically. Traditionally, that's the way it was. Employment in Japan was lifelong. And can you hear that in the background? It's 5 o'clock, and you got the dinging clock going. So there's your rules and protocol. Everybody, people of Japan, it is 5 p.m. We just want to let you know that. Welcome. Okay. Companies are family, right? Now, traditionally, employment in Japan was lifelong. But I will definitely be the first to admit that recently, especially in recent times, both the companies and the employees are really breaking that down. Companies are now doing contract workers. Okay, they're reducing costs. They're doing these contract workers because under the traditional system, if you hire a full-time employee, a full-on employee at your company, you're stuck with them. Okay, you cannot fire people in Japan very easily at all because of that lifetime employment system. So companies are trying to kind of, skirt this, I think is the word, work around this by doing contract workers. Okay, they're working through some contractor, and they're just placing people in these temp positions because they're a lot easier to cut out, when times are tough. So they're kind of working around that lifelong system. And employees are jumping ship. If you're a contract worker, full-time employment, full-on employment is probably a lot more attractive. Okay, so the job market is it goes in these ebbs and flows, and sometimes it favors the employees, and they'll jump ship and find something better. Because the talent is hard to find, and they're all going to compete for it. So if Company A is going to offer you some contract position, Company B is going to give you a full-on deal, not contractor, a full-on employee, you're probably going to favor that one. And you just sort of climb the ladder that way. And fuck it, that lifelong employee system is kind of dying, I'll say. So this is kind of a shitty theme. Sorry about that, man. And, in Japan, there's this stereotype, I hear this a lot, of, long hours, lots of overtime, the salary man, the office lady passed out on the train because they're so exhausted, saying the company comes first, the family comes second. The company took care of you. They're your family. Okay? So this is really your number one, the company. But man, that's breaking down, and I swear to God, it has to. It has to break down. Japan's got this sinking population, and they got to do something about that. So they have to favor family, because otherwise people are just going to get fucking sick of this shit. Company's not my family, man. I don't enjoy work that much, So Japan is building a lot more infrastructure and hopefully in the future spending more money and time and effort on building, things to allow people better childcare and, flexible hours and things like that to spend more time with their family. Because, man, that whole work-life balance thing, that's a real hot topic in Japan especially. And you got to figure that out, because you're going to get a bunch of pissed off people working overtime and not having kids anymore, and your workforce and economy are going to be canned. So, I mean, Japan's either got to improve that and start getting Japanese people happier with family life and having kids, and the work-life balance, and or, opening up their immigration doors a little bit more. So, I digress. There's the themes, and we're done. You like that? I got my papers right there. Papers. I prepared this for you with some papers. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Let's see, last little thing. If you like this, you can like me and all that shit. You can go to my main website, mondaiji.com. You can also go directly to the podcast section at Japanatron.com. That'll take you to the Japanatron podcast section of my website. I got all the buttons at the top, with the follow me and the links and the YouTube and the Twitter and the Facebook and the iTunes. So yeah, rate and review. It helps me to know that there's actually someone listening to this and enjoying it. So I hope you get something out of it. Yeah, and you have a very nice day. All right, toodles.
You have received this transmission from the Comedy Podcast Network. For more shows, visit comedypodcastnetwork.com.